Alright, I like to keep my disclaimers brief, so I will keep this one brief. Well, brief as I can, because there's actually two for this video. One, the obvious elephant in the room you will spot later in the video, is one of these PSAs is censored pretty much entirely to the twist ending. Because if I showed it completely uncensored on my channel, my entire YouTube channel would be completely wiped. Right, so like, I had to go right onto ad forum to even download the PSA itself. So, as much as I hate breaking my rule of not censoring PSAs, my whole fucking channel is at stake here. Second, admittedly, a lot of these PSAs would be recognized as tone deaf now, but I do not seek to perpetuate the stigma of people suffering from AIDS because, well, I've got an aunt who has the virus. And well, HIV and AIDS are far from just a gay man's disease or an IV drug user's disease. This disease can be passed through something as innocuous as a blood transfusion. So yeah, I certainly do not seek to, continue the stigma towards AIDS victims. This video is primarily dedicated only to reviewing the PSAs, tackling this subject, and spreading awareness about the disease. Alright, disclaimers aside, let's get to the actual video. Alright. This is a PSA I would describe as darkly comedic. Like, yeah, it's creepy because there's no fucking dialogue. We just hear the running of the camera, the sudden spark from the toaster. But let's be honest, if you're electrocuting yourself, he would have been burnt to a crisp. Because he was standing on the ground. He was basically sending that electric current right through the ground. And I know what you're saying. Oh, Antonio, a toaster isn't that high voltage. I don't give a fuck. You're gonna have a bit of charring on your skin if you are dumb enough to stick a knife into the toaster. But it's an interesting way to get the message across. Because there was also another equivalent to this PSA where a naked girl impales herself running with scissors. And the tagline of that PSA is, "Why do we make stupid decisions when we're naked?" Honestly, I feel like a lot of the creepiness of this PSA lies in just how fucking surreal it is. It honestly plays out like something you'd see on Adult Swim. But other than that, I don't have too many thoughts on this PSA. On to the next one.
You half-ass! You proud of yourself? I can't stand the sight of you, you hear? I've had it! Are you totally dumb or what? Do you even realize? Now get the hell out of here! Go! Out!
So here we have a PSA on treating HIV positive people as though they are typical functioning members of society, which most are. Now, initially, this PSA seems like it's going to say, hey, the boss is treating this HIV positive person in an awful way. But no, this is how he treats all of his employees, and to be honest, it's a pretty wholesome PSA once you get past the grating yelling. Like, this is how I'm scared a boss of mine is gonna yell at me one day. Thankfully, I've never been berated by a boss like that at all. But no, this boss is based, he's just mad at the employee because, well, the employee's a fucking idiot. That's why. That's why.
Chela, 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 chela. Chela, chela.
Alright, all Katamari Damacy jokes aside, which honestly, great game. This PSA is one of the most effective Belgian PSAs I've ever seen, and to be honest, I feel like it's more effective than people give it credit for. Or because, well, the human ball metaphor for AIDS gaining more ground is actually pretty goddamn creative. This human ball starts out as one person, then two, then three, then an entire village, then an entire town, then an entire small city, then a big city. And it just destroys everything in its path, much like the virus itself did during its heyday. So make all the Katamari jokes you want. This PSA is goddamn effective. And to be honest, that lullaby is supposed to be comforting, but it still scares the shit out of me since I first saw this PSA in 6th grade.
5 major AIDS symptoms. Find out if you have them. Paralysis of the hands.
Why should I give money to an AIDS charity? There are far more deserving ones.
Hardening of the heart.
They're gay. They deserve everything they get.
Understanding deficiency.
If they were straight like me, they wouldn't have caught it in the first place.
Turning back syndrome.
It's not my problem that they've got AIDS, so why should I care?
Putting the boot in complex.
I says to him no, he says why, and I says because he's got AIDS.
The London Lighthouse is a place where people with AIDS are cared for. Ring 071 792 1200 to make a donation.
Yeah, you can tell this is a PSA from the point in time in which AIDS was starting to become more understood. Because, like I said in the disclaimer, during the 1980s when this disease was running rampant, AIDS was seen as the gay man's disease. And this PSA highlights a lot of the still rampant homophobia in the point in time in which AIDS started becoming treatable, but was still a pretty big worry. AIDS, I honestly think this is one of the most progressive PSAs of its time. Because it treats homophobia as something that is just as much of a disease as the disease that brought it on. And to be honest, I feel like that's what makes it really effective.
Yeah, it's lovely. Thank you.
It's quite late. Will you stay?
Alright, so here we have this PSA. Honestly, the sound design is what really sells this PSA because it cuts between, a romantic to sensual encounter to this screeching sound, which oddly enough sounds a lot like the peep toads that live in the swamp by my house, to the romantic scene again, to finally the sound of that, what I can best describe as a metal door closing sound. The sound design is what really sells this PSA, though the cuts to black along with the white text do make it equally creepy, so This was one of the few late 80s AIDS PSAs that the UK government got right. And for that reason, I love it. Also, am I the only one that actually finds that screeching sound satisfying? Not for the reason you think, it just reminds me of the Peep Toads, that's all.
Mr. Reed? Mr. Reed? He's ready for you now.
Well, Michael, the results of your blood tests have come through, and we have found antibodies that indicate that you are HIV positive.
The AIDS virus can live on dirty needles and equipment, so don't share. Because just one fix with an infected needle will really get you out of it.
Okay. Another effective PSA, this one being from 1987. This was arguably one of the first really effective anti-AIDS PSAs I ever really saw, probably owing to the fact that it was one of the first PSAs on the subject that I ever really saw. But I do have some nitpicks with it. As effective as it is, the moral is a bit skewed. It's basically saying, if you're gonna do drugs, go ahead, just don't share a needle. Which is... okay, I'm willing to let go the fact that they botched this because, well, the idea that prevention is key probably never really crossed their minds. They were trying to prevent the stop of the virus itself, not the, types of behavior that would lead to someone sharing a needle. Which is why the next PSA in this countdown was made.
Have you seen Paul? Yeah, he's up in his room.
I like this. Sit down, man. Gonna have a go of us, Liz?
Nah, I'm not really into smack. How do you know until you've tried?
Come on, have a go for me. What on you having a chase?
No, just don't really...
Boring. Oh, come on, that's a good laugh.
Just don't really...
We are junkies or something. No, trying to do it once every now and then.
Yeah, I know that. I just...
You're not scared, are you, Liz?
No, of course I'm not.
Boring. Past their bedtime. Man, it's only a smoke. Trust me.
First smoke of heroin can make you throw up, but some people still go back for more. If you get into it, your looks will start to go, and you'll feel even worse. If you depend on it, chances are you'll end up sharing a needle.
Trust me.
And if it's infected with AIDS, Where does that leave you?
Yes, the previous don't inject AIDS PSA is the reason this haunter of my nightmares was made. You see, it essentially ties up the loose ends that the ONE PSA left open. Like, it showed the man getting sick from, having accidentally given himself AIDS by sharing a needle. But this PSA deals with, maybe don't get addicted to the drugs that caused you to share a needle in the first place. And honestly, I'm not sure why so many people put Why Me above Wax Doll in their compilations, because personally, I believe Wax Doll is actually the scarier PSA. Between that ethereal singing to the shots of the Wax Doll being, struck with an actual needle, fuck, this PSA is chilling. But then again, as my mother said, opinions are like assholes, everyone's got one. Honestly, I think the one thing more creepy about this PSA than, the fact that we're watching this man suffering from a debilitating disease, struggling to even get out of bed, is the fact that, aside from the fact that we know it was made in 1997 and that it comes from the United States, we don't know who made this PSA. But yeah, I've seen in documentaries on people in the late stages of AIDS, and it's painful to watch. Because this disease, how it works is it destroys your immune system. It destroys your immune system to the point where, you just don't live anymore. Like, a simple cold can kill you. And yeah, this man's body is basically shutting down on him because of how bad his AIDS has gotten. That's how bad it is. I'm just gonna say, YouTube, before you take this video down for me showing this, PSA uncensored, I'm not sure if that was a man's chest or a woman's chest that was pressed up against the glass. I legitimately do not know. But what I do know is this PSA is just, ugh. Aside from the fact that I know some weirdo gets off to this, the music and such and the hourglass, ugh. I wonder why we don't see this PSA talked about that much. It is so genuinely good, aside from, the more weird aspects of it. And, albeit, it makes more sense than the one I'm about to show, because it showed 10 people falling into the bottom of the hourglass. It was a metaphor for how 10 people die of AIDS every 10 seconds, I think. I'm not sure, I don't speak French. And oh boy, I'm going to have fun censoring this next PSA. So, as I stated, obviously I couldn't fucking show that uncensored in good conscience. Because, well, this PSA is pretty much softcore porn. But, as much of a pain in the ass as it was to censor, because I had to blur basically everything up until the point where it's revealed Hitler is the one banging this chick. As much controversy as this PSA got, and rightfully so, because pretty much anything involving Hitler in Germany isn't taken lightly, I feel like this PSA got its message across pretty decently, because AIDS, like Hitler, killed a lot of people, but entirely wrong country to air this in. And also, shit like this would never fly on American TV. Hell, it doesn't fly on YouTube. That's why I had to censor half the damn thing. But, I will give it this. It is one that stuck with me ever since I saw it. Oddly enough, back in 6th grade. Jesus Christ, what kind of shit was I looking at back then? You don't usually see this in a lot of PSA compilations, and that's because it has to be censored to high hell in order for you to, not have your channel taken down. But I'm in the boat, like, it had good intentions, and it's a scary enough PSA, but the execution is just horrible.
first, only gays and IV drug users were being killed by AIDS. But now we know every one of us could be devastated by it. The fact is, over 50,000 men, women, and children now carry the AIDS virus. That in 3 years, nearly 2,000 of us will be dead. That if not stopped, it could kill more Australians than World War II. But AIDS can be stopped, and you can help stop it. If you have sex, have just one safe partner, or always use condoms. Always.
Alright, I apologize for the really shitty audio quality of this PSA. This was ironically the best quality version of this PSA I could actually find. But yeah. This PSA was inspired just by, bowling. That's it. Just the Grim Reaper bowling. And I could understand how this PSA could be seen as kind of offensive because it opens up with the line, "At first, only gays and IV drug users were being killed by AIDS." But keep in mind, this was the general sentiment of the world at the time. Yeah. So, we have this PSA. Now, arguably, it deserves its spot as the scariest anti-AIDS PSA of all time for a few reasons. Those Grim Reapers have been stuck in my head, since I was fucking 11. And I didn't even grow up in Australia in the late 80s. I'm an American citizen and I was born in 2004. So yeah, there's that. But it's the statistic that this disease could kill more Australians than World War II that really gets me, as well as the fact that the Grim Reapers are just bowling strikes with all these people, including children. Also, the subtle sound of the pins being knocked down sounds like a ticking clock. But yeah, overall, effective PSA, and it definitely deserves all the honors it gets. Absolutely. Well, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary daisies alike, we have reached the end of yet another video. If you liked this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and if you've done all those things, y'all have a great day. Antonio out. Also, before I forget, plugging my Discord server, the Sheep Herd, where you can talk to me. Please, I need more activity on this server than I typically have. Also, I may or may not introduce fan art channels on there depending on how many people show up.